Meeting for Wednesday, February 16th, and we will start with a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Hartung.
Here.
Dare.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Breckes.
I'm here.
Dewar.
Here.
Hill. Member Hill is online.
Yeah, she's been on
Member Hill.
for a long time.
Okay. Jardin. Not here. Corey.
Here.
Connie. Here. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Pani, being that,
Don't get us started. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. That takes us now to item number 3, which is public comment, limited to more than 3 minutes per speaker. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in? I don't have any cards in front of me.
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Okay, I will close public comment. Bring it back to the board. Possible board comments or acknowledgements. Mr. Manager, do you have any such comments?
No, I do not.
Okay. Members? Okay. All right. We will close that. Take us to item number 5, approval of the agenda. Would anyone like anything moved out of order, or are we good?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Dewar, second by Mr. Dare. I don't have any public comments, so I'll assume there's none. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm going to assume, Madam Clerk, that Member Hill, are you there, Alexis?
Member Hill is here.
Ground control to Major Tom. Do we have her?
You just dated yourself so
Yes,
awesome.
I did.
Hands, you can raise hand feature or thumbs up feature if you wanted to show your approval. If you do not want to unmute yourself.
Okay. All right, let's continue to move forward. Item number 6, approval of the minutes for January 19th, 2022. Are there any emendations to the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes as they are placed on the agenda.
Second. Have a motion by Mr. Dare, second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us now to item number 7, water supply update. Mr. Hauk, welcome.
Mr. Chair, board members. Well, it has certainly been an interesting water year to date, hasn't it? We ended 2021 with one of the most impressive snowpacks in recent memory, well over 200% of normal. We had record snowfall on Donner Summit. I believe 214 inches was measured at the Central Sierra Snow Lab. It was a truly impressive month of December. But December 29th was the last time we saw a precip until yesterday. And we had basically a month and a half dry spell right in the middle of our 2 most important snowpack building months. So as you can imagine, that did have an impact on our on our snowpack. But remarkably, we are 100% of average.
Sonia, has
As
the
of this
meeting
morning.
started? I don't hear anything.
Okay, that's a good, okay. I'm sorry, Bill.
No worries.
Would you like me to call it? Or do you want me to go into recess for?
Do you mind, Mr. Chair? I'm just gonna.
All right, I apologize, Mr. Howell.
No worries.
I'm going to take us into recess for just a couple of minutes. I don't know the exact amount of time. The clerk will let us know.
Oh, she can hear it now, Mr. Chair.
Let's test the theory. Ms. Hill, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Madam Clerk, will you please let the record reflect that Ms. Hill is online but did not vote on the previous two because she couldn't hear us? It won't change the outcome of those votes. Mr. Hauk, forgive me, proceed.
Thank you. So as I was saying, as of this morning, we are 100% to normal, which is kind of remarkable for having no precip in the middle of the winter for a month and a half. So things are really good. We're still in a great position from a snowpack perspective. The water content of the snowpack, if you look at the black line there, which is this year, you can see we basically flatlined about 47 days ago until yesterday. We got a little blip. We got a couple tenths of an inch of moisture up top and more down here. And just for reference, you can see here on the red line, I have layered 2017 snow water equivalent, and then the orange line on the bottom was 2015, our worst water year on record. So where do we go from here? What does that mean? Well, the weather experts and their climate models are showing that the high pressure ridge, which has been sitting off the coast there, is beginning to break up and move to the northwest, and that should lead to a more active pattern in the coming weeks. But what does that mean down here? Does that mean we're gonna get a few more storms and end the season on a positive note? As indicated, you could see if that happened, we'd end, somewhere along average conditions by April 1st. If you look at the green line, the light green line, or do we end the season kind of on a whimper and really not get anything from here on out? Similar to the dark green line on the bottom, and that was 2013. We're in a very similar situation. Or do those storm doors just swing wide open and we get wave after wave of storm from here on out, as indicated what happened in 2011 in the dark blue line above.
Before we leave this slide, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just unclear, which is the line? Is it the one that truncates, that's part of the year?
The black line is
black line.
year to date.
And then when you say normal, what is normal here?
Normal is percent of median. So if you were to look at the last 30 years of snowpack, the water content in that snowpack, and took the median for that day, that's what that line represents.
And what I'm asking is there a line on here that sort of represents a median, or I just can't read the number? Is it between the green and the blue? I know
It would be the
black is-
trajectory. See the lime green line?
Yep,
It would be that line,
Oh.
would be percent of median.
thank you. So we need to still go up
We still need a few storms, for
to
sure.
maintain.
It could be one
median.
giant storm, it could be two really good ones,
Okay.
or it could be several smaller ones.
Okay,
What I can tell you, though, is fortunately for us, it's been cold enough at night that the
Yeah.
snowpack's kind of been just holding up there, which is really good. We're fortunate. So we're right at average right now, but we
Thank
don't know
you
what's
so
gonna
much.
happen from here on out. But what I can tell you with certainty is that statistically, you look like you want to say something.
Mr. Dare wants to say something else, right? He wanted to follow up on that question.
I did, thank you. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but one of the questions I have, are we doing anything, can we get an article out explaining this? I keep seeing things come through the paper that you would think that we're still in.
Take a draft.
Oh, and I sit back and my wife and I always have conversations, and she says, I know, you tell me, but I'm like,
Well, I'm prepared to talk to that at the end if
that'd be great, thank you.
let me finish this and.
Thank you.
So what does that mean for us right now? Well, statistically, worst case, right now, there's almost 100% certainty Tahoe's gonna rise another half a foot between now and July. That's worst case. So, that in combination with, the forecast for the Truckee system, natural flow, we know that we are gonna have, full river flows through our peak demand season, very likely through the end of October and probably through the end of the year, worst case. So it's a good position to be in. You can see that in the forecasted line is the gray line. The green line is our required rates of flow, where we should be. And the difference between the gray and the green is TROA operations. But normal river flows looks like probably through the end of the year, worst case scenario.
Mr. Chairman, on this graph, I guess, you said the green is,
The green is the required rates of flow at the California-Nevada state
but the
line. Florida
gray
limits.
is your projection?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the gray is actually why it's so choppy. It's actually looking at particular years, saying, well, if we're this far At this point in the season, these are the 5 most likely scenarios, and that's what that line
So
represents.
the blue is what's already happened and the gray
Correct.
is a projection.
That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Welcome. And so right now, Lake Tahoe is about a foot above the rim from its low point this October. It came up above a foot. Now it's like 95 100ths above the rim. But the best case for Lake Tahoe is to come up another 1.3 feet. In an average year, April through high, Tahoe will come up about 1.31 feet. And that's what it's looking like right now. So by July, have 2.5 feet of storage in Tahoe, which is fairly decent. And what this forecast also means is that all the other reservoirs in the system should make a significant recovery this year, if not a full recovery. And our upstream drought storage right now really couldn't be in a better position. We have almost 48,000 acre-feet of storage upstream right now. And that is a combination of our privately owned water in Donner and Independence Lakes, and the 32,000, almost 33,000 we have under TROA. And so 48,000 is the most we've ever had this time of year, and that's with Donner and Independence Lakes being at wintertime elevation. So once we fill Donner and Independence, we'll go into this summer with over 60,000 acre-feet of storage. And then by doing some normal operation stuff under TROA, by the end of this summer, we'll have probably 65,000 acre-feet of storage upstream, which is far and away more water than we've ever had in drought storage upstream.
Bill, I'm sorry, I'm just a little sight challenged, so I apologize.
No worries.
It's hard to read the key.
Sure.
So on these graphs, if you can just say the blue, the yellow, or the dark blue, the light blue, it would just help so much. And then also, I can't tell, I'm sorry, from where I'm sitting, I know we have it in our packet, but this is Tahoe Stampede, just, it's hard to read the x-axis.
Okay, I'll go through and
You
explain.
can just help
You bet.
us with that.
Yeah, so the first bar is storage in Lake Tahoe. The blue is other storage, other water. The yellow, and the theme will carry through, is Tumwa storage, the proportion that we have in Lake Tahoe. The next one is Stampede. The next one is Boca. We don't currently have any water in Prosser, but under TROA right now we have about 5,000 acre-feet in Tahoe, about 21,000 in Stampede, and a little bit in Boca. And then the next one, the light blue, is Independence, our storage, and then Donner. And then the sum totals, if you look on the far left, it says Tumwa POSW. That's the total amount of privately owned water we have between Donner and Independence. And the next line down, the Tumwa TROA, the 32,550 in the last column, that's the amount of water we have stored under the terms of TROA right now. And so altogether, about 18% of the water stored upstream currently is operated and managed by us right now.
Thanks.
Sure. So, yeah, yes?
If I may. But the current capacity is only 24%
Yes, if you look at.
of all our storage capacities that we could have.
Yeah, if you were to look at the max capacity of all the reservoirs upstream and sum them, I show that on the bottom left, 1,068,000 acre-feet. And so currently there's 260,000 in
Yeah.
storage combined total.
Yeah,
So
but,
yes,
but
24%.
you anticipate, what did you say, going to 60,000? How much, you said something before,
Right now, we have about 47,763 acre-feet controlled by Tumwa, managed by Tumwa.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the summer, we'll have over 65,000 acre-feet in storage managed by Tumwa upstream.
okay.
And most of these other reservoirs will fill, if not spill.
And when you say current capacity and maximum capacity in those reservoirs, that's Tumwa's share?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, yes. And I only have a couple more slides, and then I'll take questions.
Go ahead.
Real quick, remind me of how much acre feet a month do we need to use? Do we need to have?
Typically, a typical home with 2.5 kids or whatever uses about a half acre foot a year. So 1 acre foot of water is enough for about 2 houses for the year.
Thank you.
So drought supply perspective, we couldn't be in better shape. And going in this summer, couldn't be better. And that's great because we don't know if our friend here was right on February 2nd. He did predict 6 more weeks of winter. But if that's not the case, then we still have plenty of water upstream to meet the demands of customers this year and into the future. And with that, I'll take questions. even if we don't get any more. Yeah, those 95% chance of exceedance numbers, the half a foot rise in Tahoe, that's assuming we don't get anything from here on out.
Okay. All right. We've asked lots of questions along the way. Ms. Breckus, go ahead.
And that would convey to the fact that we would not anticipate a call for outside irrigation conservation this.
No additional conservation measures.
No,
other
the
than
ones we have are in
other than
place.
our
Okay.
standard water
Okay, thank you.
conservation measures.
Okay.
You know, we always have assigned day watering and, our, so.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Mr. Hauk, what a very thorough presentation. I appreciate it. And again, this underscores how important TROA was for us and what it's really doing for the organization. These are upstream storages. This is not our groundwater supplies or, those kinds of things where we should have some fairly, I'm assuming we have stable groundwater supplies.
We do.
Maybe in the future, you can add a slide that kind of gives us some ideas as to where our groundwater supplies are. 'Cause
Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't realize that,
Yeah, that's
the
a
way
great
that
idea.
we conjunctively use water.
Great idea. I can include that next time around. And
Ms. Hill, do you have any questions for Mr. Hauk?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I know there's been a lot of press this week about this mega drought and all that. And if you guys want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But we're in good shape. I was thinking about it this morning, and you can look at it really two ways. That study was really focused on the Rockies, the Colorado River system. They are, and this is a good study. I found it fascinating, and using tree rings as a surrogate for looking at summertime soil moisture, and go back 1,200 years. The last 22 years of record is the driest in the last 1,200 years, and it's good science. And so you could say to that, well, that's the Colorado River system, but what are we in a 22-year mega drought as well? And I'd say to that, well, if we are, we're doing pretty darn good. I mean, we're going to have more drought storage than ever. We have normal river flows projected this year. We're going to have 65,000 acre-feet of drought storage upstream. And looking at it, on the other way is. We're a completely different system. We're an isolated little sub-watershed, here in the Sierra Nevadas, and we have a series of reservoirs upstream. We have TROA, and which basically doubled, even tripled our drought storage. All these things that we already have in place, and the things that we're doing, like we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers right now to come up with ways to reoperate into federally owned reservoirs better in the wintertime and in the spring to capture any of that early snowmelt runoff that could occur due to continued climate change. And so, we have our conservation measures, which you're aware of. And so we're on top of this. We're been proactive, and we're in really good shape.
Mr. Hauk, I have a question for you, and perhaps everyone else understands, but maybe I don't. We have Donner, which is 9,500 acre-feet of storage, and then we have Independence, which is 17,500 acre-feet of storage. Are those included in the 65,000 acre-feet?
Yes.
Those numbers are
Yeah,
in there?
it would be our combined
It's our combined.
usable storage.
Okay, our usable storage. That's, okay, right. Not addition, not in addition to. Okay, very good.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You mentioned this Colorado study. Is that something, Mark, that we have access to or you could send to us just in case we'd like to check up on it?
I can send you that PDF copy when
That'd
we
be
get
great.
back to the office. You bet.
That'd be great.
I mean, the only thing I would say about that is, we're in good shape, but we don't know what climate-related migration patterns are going to go on as other places run out of water and run up to their water limitations. And, because growth, I think, among distributed metros and rurals, is going to change. So I would always, no one's run those scenarios that I've seen on a Western United States or even, another way. And there's other factors for migration. Migration, we could be an out migration because people don't want 2 months of smoke. But I think, in my view, when people bring that, that study up, which is pretty big, I think it's not a constant in what what we're doing, we're not isolating with what other uncertain, settlement patterns could come forward. Because it's really long-term thinking of centuries, but we need to think about in the next 50 years.
Sure. And just, piggybacking on that, I know that Ms. Dewar had sent an email to Mr. Forey a couple months back about the UC Davis climate change study. And if I may take a minute to just talk to that. The climate science that they used for that study was the same science that we used. We used the same exact models. They looked at the very aggressive greenhouse gas projections and looked at how that would impact snowpack coverage over the next 80 years. And we did that. We did that, only we took the modeling 3 steps further. We took that snowpack, converted that to runoff, river flows, and a hydrology under all those different models, the 8 models they used. And we routed that through an operations model, a Truckee River operations model, to see what impacts that would have on us. And we found that, 50, 80 years in the future, we are seeing similar things, periods of low to possibly no snow. But there's so many uncertainties 50, 80 years out, just with the model and the data. We did use the same science, and we saw, similar things, but it's so far out that, and they use specifically the RCP 8.5, which is the very aggressive greenhouse gas projection. And we looked at the 8.5 and the 4.5, which is a more moderate. And what we're seeing here in the Truckee River system isn't even on par with what the model projected under the 4.5. We're just not seeing those impacts yet
Yeah.
here in the Truckee.
Bill, so bottom line, if I recall, the article basically said, I don't remember how many years out, that,
I think they went to the end of the century. like we
yeah,
did.
okay, so 80 years out, that we may see very little snowpack because of this climate change issue. And that's, key source of our water. And so it's just something to think about in our long-term planning with our water plan. That's
sure.
why I sent it to you.
Yeah,
So-
no, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate that, and we just want to assure the board that we're on top of this, and, we're getting these articles too, we're reading them before they come out and hit the press, and we're really on top of this.
Cool.
So,
Well, I don't doubt you're on top of it. It's just, we have to get brought along with you.
Understand.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. That takes us now to item number 8, discussion and action and possible direction to staff regarding the appointment of Fred Arndt to fill the residential representative 2 primary for the remainder of the term ending December 31st, 2022. Ms. Folsom, did I hack Mr. Arndt's name?
I believe so.
I hacked it.
You hacked it. I don't think you did.
Okay, all right. I'm not, ask Ms. Steeland will tell you I'm not good at pronouncing names.
That's okay. All right. Good morning, Tumble Board. Sonia Folsom for the record. Before you have a simple switch in position of alternate to primary for Fred Arndt. Harry Colbert stepped down and unfortunately has passed away recently. He was a longtime member of the SAC and a great supporter of Tumwa staff and operations and projects. And Fred Arndt was appointed in 2017, and he's willing to step into the primary role. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Can you say his
would-
name again?
Fred Arndt?
Is the one who's,
Yes.
Yes, he's highlighted in green.
yes.
He was
Okay.
in the alternate position
Gotcha, thank you.
and just moved up.
Okay. Our condolences to his family. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, any questions? Ms.
He's filling the residential, what are we at, where are we at on the multifamily?
Well, we had posted, did a press release and a call
Yeah.
to, yes, took a call to the community to submit applications and letters of interest. We did not receive any for multifamily residential. We did receive a couple of senior and residential representative. As you see that Alex Talmont was appointed in 2021, and so was Kevin Ryan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, we'll stay on task here. We can certainly have staff bring us back some information if necessary, but what's in front of us today is this appointment.
Great, well,
Any other discussion?
I'll
Okay,
make
go
a
ahead,
motion,
please.
Mr. Chair, to appoint Fred Arndt to the primary representative for residential Rep 2.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
I guess I have a motion by Ms. Dewar, second by Mr. Anderson. Madam Clerk, do we have any, do you have any public comment
I did not receive
on
any
this item?
public
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Arndt. Is that Mr. Arndt?
That's Mr. Ryan.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. If you're watching, Mr. Arndt, congratulations. All right, this takes us to item number 9, discussion and possible action and direction to staff regarding the selection of Ide Bailey as Tumwa's external auditor. Ms. Cardinell, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sophie Cardinell for the record, and I have a pretty quick item for you today. Ide Bailey, formerly Kafori Armstrong and Company, has been our external auditor since Tumwa's inception. We've developed a good working relationship with them over the years, and we continue to be pleased with their services. So with this item, staff is recommending that the board appoint Ide Bailey as our external auditor for the next 3 fiscal years, which would be 2022, 2023, and 2024. And that's really all I have.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Ms. Cardinell? Okay. Is there any public comment on this item, Madam Clerk? Okay, we'll close that. Bring it back to the board. Looking for a motion to either approve or not. Or decline.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Move to approve Ide Bailey as the Tumwa External Auditor for fiscal years 2022, 2023, 2024.
Second.
So I have a motion by Mr. Anderson, second by Mr. Dare. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Cardinal.
Thank you.
Item number 10, presentation of fiscal year 2022, quarter 2, year-to-date financial results. Ms. Sullivan, I see that you are on task for Mr. Bowman this morning.
Yes,
Welcome.
Bowman is absent today. Michelle Sullivan, CFO for the record. I'm presenting the first half of the year financials for fiscal year 2022. We're doing great versus budget. The change in net position is 5.9 million higher or better than budget, 21%. That's mainly due to non-operating capital contributions. We'll go over that later, specifically what those are. Versus last year, we're just slightly 2% lower than change in net position for last year. That is mainly due to higher non-operating expenses. Again, we'll go over that in specifics in a minute. For operating revenues, we are pretty much right on budget overall with charges for water sales slightly under budget, 600,000 under, and then other operating sales 900,000 higher than expected for budget. That is due mainly to late fees and customer call-out charges and inspection fees, just a lot of miscellaneous fees being higher. And during the pandemic, some of these fees were waived, and now they're coming back, and so we kind of underestimated what those might be. As far as year over year, again, we're very close to the last year with water sales just 500,000 lower. Hydro sales are lower 560,000 due to the turning off of the hydros for the lack of water or the lower water in the river. And then operating sales are $0.8 million higher. I was gonna just mention going over I was looking at the accounts receivable and what's happened over the pandemic over the last 3 years. Generally over 60 days before the pandemic, we had about $100,000 in over 60 days. And that's very minimal for accounts receivable. During the height of the pandemic in September 2020, we were at about 650,000 in over 60 days. And right now we're at about 230,000. So it's balancing back. So
Yeah.
just wanted the board to be aware of that. On operating expenses versus budget, we've got $2.7 million favorable to budget. Salaries and benefits are lower than budget due mainly to vacancies. We just have quite more vacancies. We haven't been able to find, like a lot of places, the right person for some of our jobs, open positions. And then services and supplies are 4% lower than budget. Some items have been higher, like fuel, 62% higher than budget, but other things have not been impacted yet. But we are preparing next year's budget and looking at what those increases might be. I think they'll be especially in the CIP budget. Year over year, basically, it's about the same. Everything's just a bit higher due to inflation, and higher power costs are also part of the increase there due to higher consumptions. Moving on to non-operating expenses, we are basically a little 7 million versus 5 million in the budget, and that is almost all due to the decrease in the fair value of investments, and that's just as the 5-year treasury ticks up a bit. It's not a cash, it's just the value of what we're holding. We have to account for the decrease in the value of it based on the fair value of assets today. That's not a cash item though. So that's the main variance there to budget, and it's the same story pretty much in the year over year non-operating revenues and expenses items. Very close, just it's the fair value of investments. Moving on to capital contributions. Now these are the mostly the developer contributions that come in, non-operating contributions. We do right now versus budget, we got the FEMA award for the Glendale diversion rebuild from the 2017 flood. So that's some exciting news. So we have we are $1 million over budget in grants coming in. So that happened after a lot of back and forth with FEMA. So that's exciting. And then pretty much all of the items are slightly over budget. We don't want to overshoot our budget on these developer items, but we are taking a deep dive into this for the next year's budget. Really speaking with all of the engineers that deal with all the different areas and trying to nail that down even closer. Year over year, for the capital contributions, we are 3.9 million higher, and that is we're very close on most of this. Obviously, the grants I talked about are, we didn't have that at all last year. And then infrastructure contributions are up 2.4 million. And that is just contributions from developers on infrastructure they have built and dedicated. So that's a non-cash item.
Ms. Sullivan, I have a question for you real quickly on that. You know, at RTC, we have a process called CCFEA, which is a capital contribution front-end agreement, whereby a developer builds extra capacity and then we give them credit for future RIF fees. Does Tumwa have any such thing? So, you know, as an example, if I'm building a line out somewhere and we know that there's going to be development, do we have, you know, such a program where we say,
We pay for oversizing.
we pay for it? Okay.
So that we would have a project and we would pay for the portion that was oversizing.
Okay, so we don't have a program in place where again, at RTC, we don't pay anything for that. We just issue them a credit, right, that allows them to offset a future requirement.
I don't believe we issue credits. I think we actually pay for oversizing, but Mark, you can maybe clarify.
We do have in Rule 5 the option to have participation payments if a developer needs to build a pump station, for instance, and then we know there's another developer right behind him, then that is pretty common. But as far as issuing credits, we don't typically do that, but we do have participation payments when there's a project that more than one entity is using soon.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Our capital spending budget for the year is $60 million. So far, we spent 13. One of the biggest delays on a big project is our meter, AMI meter replacements, and we've been unable to obtain meters. We've only spent a little less than $1 million on that this year, and hoping the meter shortage is based on the fact that there's a chip shortage, because there are chips in our meters. So we're hoping that. We're getting enough, to keep up, but we really wanted to do a mass replacement, which we will eventually once we can get those meters.
Is that meter shortage affecting new development where if they can't set a meter, that we can't give them?
We haven't had that yet.
Okay.
So we've been able to keep up, like I
Okay.
said, but we just don't have enough to do a mass replacement. Yeah. Our cash position at the end of 2021 was 241 million, 11 million higher than the beginning of the year. Total cash on hand, 181.7 was unrestricted. So we're doing very well in that area. And 59.3 is restricted to pay for principal and interest payments and maintaining the required reserves that we have in our covenants for our bonds. Does
Okay.
anyone have any questions?
Ms. Freckles?
Thank you. And I really appreciate the fact that you are talking about that constant feedback loop of going back and analyzing your development fees and, calibrating those to capital. I've advocated so much over at Reno that we do this with our sewer fees, and the crude nature, that in that one that's been stuck since 2014 for connection fees is just so striking to the fine tuning that you do over here. And it's really the sign in my mind of a resilient, well-managed utility versus one that's going to have a lot of troubles and is having troubles and inequities. So anyway, the sustainability program, though, I noticed it's quite a bit over, coming in, and I know that's development related. What are you seeing? Refresh my memory of what the sustainability program is, because I think the board really directed that. What's the summary of that?
The sustainability program, we collect fees whenever we sell or someone dedicates water rights. So either they buy them and they pay a fee related to that, or if they dedicate rights to Tumwa, they also have to pay the fee still. And I believe it's $1,600 a acre foot. It's right in there. Anyway, so that money is going to be used on certain, mainly CIP projects that relate to the sustainability of our water system. So when we get to the point where we're presenting the CIP, which we will be pretty soon, it's budget season, you'll see some of those projects are going to be funded by that sustainability fee.
Gotcha. I was thinking in my mind, and maybe I'm not crazy about the term sustainability fee. I'm not sure when it came in. I'd maybe call it resiliency fee or something like that. But I thought it was the one that the board pivoted off the meter. Remember the meter? And then we wanted it as a buffer for rate increases at some potential, time of duress. Does anyone remember this?
Of course, yeah, that was Ms. Jordan's.
And that was
Yes.
actually, I think it was my idea initially, but,
Right, it was your idea.
but does, because I raised the question of the meters and why we were using the meters, but what is that fee called? Or that program called?
That's a totally different program. So
What's it called again? What do we call it in the budget?
Stabilization fund.
Okay.
And that is a part of our reserve. We set a reserve requirement where we need to have a certain level of cash. And then if we have enough cash, we can fund that rate stabilization fund, which we definitely have enough cash at this time to do.
Okay. And this is, what's the origin again then of the sustainability fee? Because it probably predates me on the board and I'm just trying to get my head.
Sustainability was our meter retrofit, so we needed developers to help pay for the retrofit of all the meters.
Okay.
There wasn't meters years ago.
Okay, yes.
Right, so then now that we can't really retrofit anymore.
Yes.
We have just a few hundred.
Okay.
So we repurposed that at a slightly lower rate so that
That's right,
developers
that's
can
right.
help with resiliency.
Okay.
Sustainability or
Wait, but
whatever.
to do what? We repurposed it,
One at a time.
sorry, repurposed it to,
So we used to be the water meter retrofit.
right.
And then when we found that we don't have any more retrofit to be done, we redesigned, well, I guess we brought the rule back and repurposed it into this, water resiliency sustainability fee. So that as growth is, it's affecting the resiliency and the sustainability of the water. So then they can help pay for us trying to figure out where we can go with projects like the potable reuse and those sorts of projects that we're trying to look to the future.
Yeah, yeah, and to summarize why I brought it up is it's cash, it's running above budget right now,
Yes.
which is, obviously a reflection of the growth.
That's correct.
But that, in a way, logically, if you back up why you have it, is if it goes over budget, that's a projection issue, but the growth means that you're gonna need these resiliency projects more on your CIP, because, growth is
That's
the
the
one,
thing.
yeah, that needs the system. So thank you very much for that, explanation and reminder.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dare.
Yeah,
Mr. Anderson.
when we were talking about our growth and inflation, and I'm just concerned about our ratepayers, we have a lot of things going to be hitting them. What is your anticipation? I mean, rate stabilization was brought up. Has some of that in there. I don't know the right answers. I'm just asking, what are we thinking? I've heard inflation sometimes right now. The numbers are going to look very high across the board. And if we can try to be there, especially for those on fixed incomes and things, I'm very concerned.
Well, I think over the next 2 years, we've got the 2.5% in place from all of our projections. And there could be, inflation could affect us, but we do have a lot of cash reserves. And we could use that rate stabilization fund if needed. And I think we could still definitely smooth a fairly reasonable rate increase plan beyond those 2 years that we already have, over maybe possibly the next 5 years. I don't see there being any sort of a large water rate increase for our customers at all.
That's my question. I appreciate that.
Mr. Anderson.
So actually, I had two, but you just answered one.
Okay.
So the second one is also looking forward. What I've been hearing from different agencies are that just-in-time shipping is pretty much out the window, as well as even manufacturing reliability, placing orders for equipment, and it's taking a year to get parts in. So now what they're doing is instead of just having one in stock, they're ordering 2, 3, 4, and having them on the shelf in the warehouse in time of need. Are we accounting for that as well, and what that impact will have on us?
We actually right now are going out for our warehouse bidding. That's something we could definitely consider, needing to have more inventory in our warehouse. But we are currently right now doing a 5-year, I think it's every 3 or 5, Pat might know.
I can answer that question.
Thank you.
In answer to you, Paul.
Can you come down? I'm sorry,
We can
Mr.
hear you,
Gephardt.
but come down.
Yeah, I apologize. The
Definitely trying to get as many meters as we can right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Gephardt,
But on
welcome.
the operations side, let's let Andy speak.
For the record, Andy Gephardt. Yes, we are taking that into consideration. We're looking at how long it's been taking to get different parts, different parts and pieces, if you will, to operate the distribution system, pump stations, everything that it takes to make it run. We're saying, well, if it takes this long to get, a part, we better have 2 on stock. And so we are doing that. We are ensuring that we have the reliability of the system in mind.
So at what point would you be able to reconcile that with the accounting side to say, okay, we're beefing up our inventory by X, so we need to account for that? At what point do you foresee that?
Well, it's a constant review.
Okay.
At this point in time, it's not a significant hit on it. We feel pretty comfortable, but we are reviewing that constantly. We're hoping that this doesn't last forever, but you never know.
Right, we'd have to do an evaluation of, is it a significant dollar amount to actually carry an inventory? Right now, we don't carry an inventory. We do carry a meter inventory, but we don't carry, say,
Pumps, motors.
motors, et cetera.
We have a few that are oddballs that could take the time, but for the most part, we're pretty comfortable.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gephardt, before you leave, Are some of those, is it some, a scenario where someone's available locally, like through, you know, when I say locally, where we purchase it maybe from Granger or, you know, some other,
Yeah, we
some other
shop
place where-
locally.
Yes.
We're,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, can they get it, you know, can they get it fairly rapidly? Because, I mean, what I've noticed in my own home is that my furnace never goes out Monday morning.
no.
It goes out, you know, Christmas Eve.
My air conditioner went out last July in the middle of the smoke when it was hot. So,
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah. On a Friday night.
No,
Yeah, I get it.
we do work with the local suppliers to see what they can keep in stock. You know, can they carry a little bit more in stock than they normally would in anticipation of us needing it?
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay, very good. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, I don't believe that, I mean, there's nothing listed on here for direction, which takes us now to item number 11, informational report on watershed protection planning activities and projects. Ms. Morris, welcome. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Stephanie Morris, Water Resources Manager for the record. I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit about why we care about watershed protection, what TUMWA has been doing since 2008, and then to kind of give you an update and overview of some of the things that we've been looking at and some of the partnerships that we've been trying to foster. So I will just sort of say off the record in the package, or not off the record, off topic a little bit, but in the package, I included some photos for you to see. Those were from the East Troublesome Fire and the Cameron Peak Fire in Colorado. And the reason I included those was to kind of pinpoint for the board why this is important. So roughly 80% of our water supply originates in California and Nevada in upstream reservoirs. And they're in forested areas, and we use sort of natural infrastructure, the river, and then the reservoirs to be able to transport that water to our customers. In Colorado, in these fires, and you can see some of the things that happened, the reservoir that's included there, you can see, looks kind of a lot like the land around Stampede Reservoir, where it's steep, there's a lot of forest, and it created a lot of devastation. We've known from things that have happened in the past, when we look at soil moisture, that when you have fires like the Camp Fire that happened up above Lake Oroville in California, that it changes potentially how snow melts and what the soil captures. So fires above our reservoirs can really impact runoff, and it can impact water quality in a very big way. And the other photo I included shows kind of some of the algae that was growing, and they're having sort of harmful algal blooms, HABs, that are occurring from that extra sediment that's coming into the reservoirs, and that's really impacting water quality in Colorado. So I just think that's a really great example of why we care about this issue and why we need to be doing more, in particular given the changes that we're seeing in climate and in fire behavior. We've seen a lot of that over the last several years. So that's why we care. What TUMWA has been doing in the past is working through the Truckee River Fund, and this information is summarized in the packet. We've spent approximately just under $900,000 on watershed protection projects, including some thinning. The Nature Conservancy, TNC, has been a great partner with us. They have done a ton of work, and they continue to be a great partner. Most of the funds have gone through TNC for work that they've done at Independence and around Independence for thinning and other fire protection projects. There's been matching funds for those projects of roughly just over $500,000. So that's also good that there's funds coming in to help supplement those Truckee River funds.
Fuels mitigation.
Yes. Essentially, what we've been doing now is sort of given this increased risk, we've been looking at the Truckee River, the Middle Truckee River watershed. There's a lot of planning and activities that have gone on in the Tahoe Basin. to protect, for fire watershed protection, thinning, all of that, there hasn't been as many activities or coordination on the Middle Truckee River and the Little Truckee watershed, which is really important to our water supply. There also has been stuff on the HT, which we care about because of the east side streams and how we get water supply from those streams as well. So Ms. Steele and I have been working with TNC. We've had several meetings over the last 7 months with both ranger districts for the HT and the Truckee. We've been working with the Truckee River Watershed Council. We've been working with National Forest Foundation, NFF, as well as touring some other projects like the North Yuba Rivershed Partnership, and asking how they're all working together. Because as I've kind of explained, we care about the watersheds and they're important to us, but we don't own the land around the watershed and the reservoirs. And so we don't necessarily have jurisdiction to be able to implement these projects. So Yuba County Water Agency is a big funder and partner in the North Yuba Partnership. And we toured some projects that they've been doing. And we also talked to them about how they've been funding those projects. And another example using sort of same strategy is Placer County Water Agency did the French Meadows project. And what we're finding from them is that if you have a sort of base amount of funding from a local share, that you can really leverage both state and federal dollars to do this type of work. What we've also found is that it requires planning and it requires NEPA, so Federal Environmental Analysis, because a lot of this is done on U.S. Forest Service. So that's why we've been really reaching out and having multiple meetings with the Forest Service and the different ranger districts to see how we can all work together. And so what we're sort of contemplating is looking for a memorandum of understanding that would help bring all these different agencies like the Truckee Fire Protection District and the Truckee River Watershed and the U.S. Forest Service together to look at a gap analysis. So where along the system have we done planning? Where has NEPA been completed? Where does it need to be completed? So we can start to assess like which projects would be a priority for TUMWA to help fund. And we're starting to identify those projects. I think TNC has been a huge help on this because they've published papers and they've done modeling. Do you have a question? I'm sorry, I'm rambling on.
You keep going.
I'm wrapping up.
Member Hill has a question as soon as you're ready for a break.
Okay, thank you. So essentially, working with those groups to finish this gap analysis so that we can kind of assess where we could plug in to do more planning and what other funding that we can plug into. There's a lot of money in California because these lands in large part are located in California through CAL FIRE. What National Forest Foundation has done is they work exclusively with U.S. Forest Service, and they're able to act and implement under agreements with them to move more quickly on these projects if there's funding. And so what we want to do is to collaborate with U.S. Forest Service, NFF, and some of these NGOs to be able to prioritize projects that we think will be more protective for our water supply and have that analysis to come back to the board and recommend some projects to you in the very near future that we would like to help fund to protect our water supply. So I've gone on, I think, quite a bit. I could talk about this all day. It's very interesting, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Ms. Hill? Kirk to Enterprise. Ms. Hill?
Hello.
There you are.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Stephanie, for this. This is such an exciting report, and I'm loving that TUMWA is tackling this. I'm on the TRPA board, and it's something that we have been looking at and evaluating on the Tahoe side of things with fire affecting Lake Clarity. And so I'm very excited that you're looking for funding opportunities. And I think, one of the things that I feel like we miss out on locally is opportunities for match funding because we don't put it in the money from the local jurisdiction. So I just wanted to let you know, I'm very excited about this, any support that Washoe can provide. And also, I know that on the federal side, our delegation would be very interested in this work and seeing how they can support it. So great job, and just let me know how I can get involved.
Thank you, I will. And we definitely want to reach out to our federal and state legislators to help find other funding sources as we sort of identify where those funding gaps are. So I appreciate the offer for help, and I will take you up on it.
Mr. Dare.
Yeah, I want to echo a little bit on what she just said. There's been a turn, not that it wasn't before, but they're really focusing infrastructure, calling it infrastructure now, as we handle our fires and water in that region and in that kind of set. But even Nevada League of Cities and a few other things are helping step up to at large help what we're doing. So however we can help, but I think it's important that we look to that, try to pull some of those resources. But it's the collaboration will be the necessary piece, or they won't even look at us. So you're definitely down the right track. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ms. Beckus.
Yeah, back in, was it January that the U.S. Forest Service mentioned that, I think it was $65 million a year, and all the thinning in, I think it was California, Oregon, and Colorado, they were going to go out, or maybe it was 65 million acres a year, and it was, I can't remember, it was widely reported, and I was focusing on it more from air quality, because they were going to concentrate on Northern California and hopefully help, some of the issues we've experienced. But I have wondered on the water quality, the watersheds, and I think this is a really good opportunity or approach, because what I gather from you is, we've done a little bit, but it's been rather piecemeal with this very nice partner we have here locally. But now with so much attention to what's been happening, we need to plug into this bigger scene. And so I really will look forward to that. What do you think you're going to bring forward? I get the MOU, but are you going to bring forward like a white paper or a work program of, which NEPAs, which forests, and then, so how do you see it playing out?
Thanks, Stephanie Morris, for the record. I see this as a marathon rather than a sprint. It's a very big issue. A lot of times it's not federal funding that's missing, it's staffing. And what do you do with the materials after you've done the thinning? And so what I think we're, after talking to John Enlow and understanding the priority that he has for this and just being able to spend some time on it, where I think we really plug in is to try to bring all these pieces together. And what I anticipate bringing back, and no promises exactly because we're still working through all of this, is kind of that gap analysis of what we've looked at.
Okay.
Like, for example, here's the watershed. The town of Truckee and the Truckee Fire Protection District, they're planning projects here, here, and here. There's this gap around Stampede, and there's this project that we think we can help fund. And then I think IVGID has a really great program where they collect money, and they have sort of this base amount of money that they always have for fireshed protection. And what they do with that money, in effect, is they're able to have that local share, so that when the funding becomes available, they can include that and move projects more quickly. And so by working with NFF, with the U.S. Forest Service, we're hoping to help expedite those projects that need some amount of funding locally, but that also are going to be focused on what's going to protect the watershed. Now, I'm kind of, to go to Member Dare's point, we can't do it all ourselves. There's no way. It's much too large. But if we can collaborate with all these people and have funding strategies, have NEPA strategies, and really combine our resources, then we can have other people doing bigger pieces of it as well, and then we plug in where we feel it is best and where the board allows us to. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really good. I think the gap analysis is going to be very map detailed oriented. So I look forward to seeing maps.
And there's a lot of information, GIS data that's been collected through a Truckee River Watershed Council process. And so we have a big jump on that mapping process.
I mean, my question is, are you going over to the Marlet? Because that's an issue outstanding. The board, are you going over, what's in the path over of the water coming in, from Honey Lake? So I want to start with the map. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Steeland, you got away. Wow. Holy mackerel. Lucky you. All right. We'll close item 11. That takes us to item number 12, discussion and possible approval of an interlocal agreement for water resource lease between Tumwa and the city of Reno. Mr. Enlow, Ms. Morris, Mr. Bowman. I only see one. Mr. Enlow, welcome.
Good morning, John Enlow for the record. And Matt Bowman could not be available today, but if there are any questions regarding financial issues, I think Michelle
Yes.
can handle that. I wanted to go back. I have a question first. Should we take both of these items
I see
together?
that items 12 and 13 are in my packet. I forgot about that. If the board is okay, so Mr. Pani, do you want us to take action on each individual item, or would you like us to, what will satisfy
I
you?
think it's appropriate to open both items together, and take action separately on each of them.
Done. Okay, so I will open up item number 13, which is discussion and possible approval of a water resource purchase agreement between Tumwa and Fish Springs Ranch LLC. Mr. Enlow, welcome back.
Thank you very much. So you have in your packet a lot of information. I want to step back and give you a little context as to how we arrived at this point. So Exhibit 1 in your packet, if you recall, was from a workshop that we held at Tumwa back in, I think, January of 2021, so a little over a year ago. It was following completion of the water resource plan, and we just presented kind of different focus areas that the water resources team was working on and a number of issues that we're working on with other partners within the community. Return flow management is a good example of that, where we're working with Reno and Sparks to support their use of reclaimed water and providing return flow in the Truckee River and so forth. Another one of those topics, so you're well aware of Vidler Water Company and the Fish Springs Ranch project. We're using that water up instead, putting it to good use. But the sale of that water is, I'll just say the commitment of that water is not occurring quickly. So we were really looking for opportunities to, how do we accelerate the use of that water? From our perspective, we want to, I'll say, stress the aquifer out there in Fish Springs to make sure that the water source is as reliable as we think it is, the water quality is appropriate and so forth. So we were looking for opportunities to increase the use of the Fish Springs water. And representatives from Vidler, and we have a couple in the audience today who are here to answer questions if they come up, but they had approached Tumwa, I'd say over the last couple of years, looking for opportunities. Could they actually commit that water elsewhere within Tumwa's service area rather than just in the Stead Lemon Valley area? So all of these discussions have been going on for the last couple of years, and that's how this concept of these two separate agreements that you have before you today came about. So first read, it seems complicated, but in reality, it's pretty simple. What we are proposing to do, I think I want to start with the purchase of the water rights first, that piece. So Fish Springs, Vidler Water Company was looking at, they'd like to sell more water. and get a return on their investment, obviously. We, Tumwa, are interested in acquiring more water resources, making sure we have more water available in our Rule 7 when developers come in and so forth. So we've had these discussions. The value of Fish Springs groundwater is more up in the Stead Lemon Valley area because you really kind of compare it to the cost of supplying Truckee River water up there. And so the value up there is, I think Fish Springs Vidler is asking for somewhere on the order of $40,000 an acre foot. I think it's a little bit higher than that now, but that's the order of magnitude. I want to try to correct a misperception that's out there because people like to say their groundwater is $40,000 an acre foot. Tumwa's Rule 7, Truckee River water is $7,700 an acre foot. That's true, but that $40,000 an acre foot value of Fish Springs water brings other value to it because we don't have to treat that water at Chalk Bluff and pump it up there. There's the sustainability fee that we talked about earlier doesn't apply to groundwater. So there's all these different pieces. And when you kind of compare apples and apples of the cost of providing service with Truckee River water versus the cost of providing service with Fish Springs water, with our WSF fees brought into the equation, kind of the break-even value on Vidler's water up in the North Valleys from a developer cost standpoint is $27,000 an acre foot. That's kind of the break-even value. And there's a table in the staff report that shows you kind of how we look at things. So, I mean, Vidler was asking Tumwa, do we want to buy some of their groundwater? And so there were a lot of discussions on what we could afford to pay. And in other areas of our service area, so we looked at, okay, could we sell Fish Springs water in other areas that have different connection fees and so forth? And the value, this equivalent value, is less in other areas. And again, because our WSF fees, how they're different in certain areas, right? So we could not afford to pay $27,000 an acre foot and dedicate water down here because the cost we're basically just going to pass these costs on, right? When a developer comes in, they pay for water rights, they pay for the WSF fees and so forth. So we looked at how much can we afford to pay? And when you look at I think it's a table in the staff report, you could see a side-by-side comparison of what Tumwa could afford to pay versus what Vidler was asking for their water right.
Before you go
Can
on.
you hold on? Because Ms. Hill has questions also.
Oh, I just didn't want him to leave this point about the apples to apples, so I'm worried I'm gonna, if I don't.
If you don't mind, let me get through.
Sure.
Because it's confusing until you understand it. So the table in your staff report on page 4 kind of shows this apples to apples comparison.
But could we put that up?
Sonia, can you bring that up? That table 1. Nope. So I'll just keep going while that's coming up. So basically the value that we negotiated with Vidler Water Company for the price of an acre foot, if we buy it, is $25,000 an acre foot. But for us, for Tumwa, we could not afford to pay $25,000 an acre foot and keep the cost to developers the same. That's where this other concept with the city of Reno and our work with, on really the return flow management agreement, Tumwa providing management of the resources to help Reno and Sparks satisfy the return flow obligation when they use reclaimed water. So Reno had a need for additional return flow resources. And so this concept that we've come up with was, okay, what can Tumwa afford to pay for this water right and keep the cost to development the same? That's the highlighted number in this table 1 that you see up on the screen, the $15,360. And could Reno afford to pay basically the difference through a lease payment to make up this $25,000 an acre foot? Let me go to the lease concept now for a minute so you see the bigger picture. So Reno needs water to help satisfy their return flow obligation. We're working with them on long-term solutions. This is a 10-year kind of an interim solution where what we're doing is, so Tumwa today, we pump Truckee River water up to Stead to serve our existing customers up there. What we are going to do is we're going to deliver Fish Springs groundwater to Stead and displace that 3,000 acre feet of Truckee River water that we send up there. And we will leave that 3,000 acre feet of Truckee River water in the river and permit that water to satisfy Reno's return flow obligation. So it's a 10-year deal. The city of Reno heard this item, a couple of weeks ago at Reno City Council, and they approved the ILA between the city and Tumwa. But both of these agreements are needed to make this deal happen. So I know it. So we're bringing in Truckee River groundwater, we're bringing in Fish Springs groundwater, leaving Truckee River water in the river, and using that to help satisfy Reno's return flow obligation. So that being said, the 3,000 acre feet is actually a little more than what Reno needs, but there's always projects that come up, temporary uses that come up. I mean, we're talking with Wingfield Golf Course right now. I mean, there's 500 acre feet right there that Sparks could potentially participate in this. And so here's a chunk of water that would be available to satisfy that return flow obligation for a period of time. So lots of opportunities. Honestly, there will probably be more water left in the river than is necessary to satisfy the return flow obligation. But that's the deal that we've struck. So what you have, let me go back to the Vidler deal now. So with Tumwa's $15,360 an acre foot and Reno's lease payment, it's $300 and some odd thousand, but a year for 10 years. And the agreement that we have with Vidler Water Company, Tumwa is agreeing to purchase 400 acre feet of Fish Springs groundwater, 40 acre feet a year for 10 years, basically $1 million a year for 10 years is what we're agreeing to. We're going to take that 40 acre feet of Fish Springs groundwater and substitute it on existing commitments instead, existing Truckee River commitments instead. So we're going to free up that Truckee River water instead and bring it back down to, I'll just say, the central Truckee Meadows, where we could dedicate it really anywhere within our service territory. And that makes sense for Tumwa to do for a number of reasons. I mean, the value, number one, to the end user is the same. I mean, that was one of the givens in this from day one. So the value to developers is the same. Tumwa will be financially equal. We're not spending, the only thing where there's a little bit of a difference is timing issues on when money's collected, but it's very, very small on the timing of when Reno pays and that type of thing. But Tumwa has the opportunity now with this 40 acre feet to rededicate that 40 acre feet at much more, I'll say, efficient dedication rates today. Remember how our Rule 7, we keep it keeps going down, down, down what the dedication requirements are for a single family home and so forth. So we could take this 40 acre feet that's dedicated up there now, bring it down to the Truckee Meadows and rededicate it at more efficient rates. So it's good for us from the efficient use of water resources. We're always out there trying to maintain our pool of water rights in our Rule 7. So when people come in that need water, that we have adequate water available and so forth. So, I mean, that in a nutshell, I know it's complicated, but you have the staff report in front of you. Hopefully that kind of clearly spelled out what we're trying to accomplish. But with that, I think I'll just be quiet and try to take questions.
Hold on just a second. Ms. Hill asked literally when this presentation started. So Ms. Hill,
Yes, sorry.
I didn't mean to anger you.
Thank you.
The floor is both of yours.
Thank you for the opportunity. I had emailed Mark last night about whether the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe had been consulted on this. And he stated that no, they had not, but this was a good deal for them. And I don't disagree that this is perhaps something that the tribe, would be happy with necessarily, but I have a real problem that Tumwa is not consulting with our neighbors. I would expect Washoe County, if we had something similar, that we'd be talking to our neighbors in Sparks and Reno that affect them. And so I on that issue and on, how I really believe that we need to be talking to the tribe in the same way that we'd be talking to these other governmental entities, I cannot vote to approve this item today, items 12 and 13. So that's just what I wanted to say for the record, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay. All right, Ms. Stewart, go ahead, and then Ms. Breckus.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hill, for that. That's very important information. You are correct. When we anticipate, someone will think something's positive, and I think the reason is because you are leaving more water in the river, so they're put in a better position. Who could argue with that? But that it is somewhat dismissive to not ask the question, right? Do you concur with our perception? So I support you on that, Ms. Hill. But way back when we started talking, I just have to go way back to the basic. Totally get the concept. This kind of concept has been done throughout the West. If you remember, Southern Nevada was looking at having Santa Barbara use ocean water, RO, and avoid taking their water from the Colorado River and leaving the water right there for Las Vegas. It's the same concept of put the water where it's closest to its need, so you have less transportation costs, and then pay other people to do an advanced process. So I totally get the concept and support the concept. My question was this: way back at the beginning of this presentation, you talked about $40,000 an acre foot water and $7,700 or $7,000. My question is, when you start talking apples and oranges, is the delivery of the water factored in so we can have an apples to apples? So is the $40,000 at point of delivery? Is the $7,700 I don't think that's at point of delivery. That's just buying water rights.
Right.
So have you done an economic calculation to show when you factor in the delivery cost of bringing it up to North Valleys or wherever, the equivalent, is that your 27,000? Or can you just explain those two
Sure.
things?
No, good question. So what this table represents are the cost to developers for acquiring water rights, and I'll just say paying connection fees, hookup fees, that type of thing. And so those are equal, the way this is said. The cost of delivery, right? So to deliver Truckee River water to Stead, you have to pay to treat it and then pump it all the way up the
Right.
hill. And for Fish Springs groundwater, you've got a big pumping cost to get it up over the hill and into the North Valleys too. Those two costs are roughly the same
Okay.
from an operational standpoint.
So it's a wash.
It really doesn't cost us anything to operate the system that way. And the benefits, it's.
Well, it costs us to pump.
Well,
It's
the
an added
cost
cost.
is the same. It doesn't cost us more to do one versus the operating costs of bringing water into Stead
Oh.
is the
It's-
same.
Yes. But what I'm trying to compare apples to apples is this 40,000 and this 7,000.
Yeah.
Is the 40,000 a delivered to point of use cost, or is that per acre foot? You said $40,000
Right,
acre
right,
foot, but is
right.
that delivered?
Yes.
Does that incorporate this
It is.
pumping and
Right.
traveling?
Well, not pumping, but it incorporates the $100 million plus that Vidler Water Company
Invested.
paid for all of the infrastructure
Right.
to be able to deliver
That's
that
why I figure
water
the
to
number's
Stead
higher, because
area.
they're having to cover all of the capital cost to create the water, bring it up,
Right,
move it.
exactly.
But my question, so once we stipulate that is, so that's all embedded in the cost of the 40,000, but our cost of 7 is just a raw acre foot cost.
Exactly.
It does not incorporate, and so I think it would be useful for the public and us to understand what it takes, even if it's a wash, what it takes to add to that $7,000 acre foot to get the water where it's needed, treat it and get it where it's needed.
And that's what this table
That's what I'm
is
asking.
trying to represent.
Okay, well-
Because if you go through it, you could see, so when it says Tumwa Rule 7 water, and we compared it to a 6,000 square foot, single-family lot,
Okay.
typical residential lot. And so you have different water dedication factors. So just that water rights 0.11 factor, that 0.03. So you'd have to dedicate that much more Truckee River water. And that's water that we store under TROA. Bill was talking about the TROA storage that we have. So everybody who dedicates Truckee River water pays or provides an increment of water for additional drought storage. So that's what that increment of water
So
is.
this chart shows us the scale up of the costs. This is where you kind of lose me.
What the big difference is, where the big difference is down in the
Bottom.
bottom, the supply treatment fee.
Okay.
It's dollars per maximum day demand, that's 63.28. So with Truckee River water, you're paying that. That's the cost for Chalk Bluff. It has a component of the Mount Rose Water Treatment Plant in it. It has all these other water supply components in there. Whereas with the Fish Springs project, that's, like you were saying, it's baked into that $40,000 an acre foot number.
But here's the question, why is it 15,360 and not 40,000 in this equation?
This is what we are saying Tumwa can pay. This is the most that we can pay and
if we
keep
set the cost at this, then they're
end user
equal.
cost the same.
Then if we set the cost at this, but the real cost, they would like to vend their water at $40,000 an acre foot, but a negotiated cost would be this 15,360.
Right.
That's what keeps us equal, is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
And
thank
it's
you.
really, it's 25,000, but Reno's paying the difference in their lease payment between the 15,360 and the 25.
Okay.
That's what's
Hard to
going on.
calculate that in or know where it fits, but thank you. You have helped me a lot.
Sparkus.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I kind of wish we hadn't introduced this larger concept of what to do with Vidler and Fish Springs into the discussion. You know, we had kind of a narrow workout for the Reno return flow issue. And it took me hours to figure out what that was, talking to Reno, talking to you, doing my own thinking. And in the end, I supported it, but, you know, stepping back and saying, you know, along your example, Ms. Dewar, about, you know, the Colorado River paying, you know, the coastal cities to do this, maybe, you know, I don't know if they ever did it, but they didn't do it. It adds complexity to the system, you know, when you're cost accounting and putting more on paper. And I'm not entirely sure that it's not a sign of stress to the system,
It's not what?
a sign of stress to the system.
Is
In
it
that,
a warning sign?
A sign of stress.
yeah.
Oh,
I think when you make your systems more complex, you know, paper versus, and moving water around, I think it's a sign of stress. I mean, we have Mr. Hauk showing that we're in good shape, but, and maybe that's a function of growth, but, you know, resource demand. So that's what I took away from it. And I always try and narrate in my head the concepts of this water stuff to the very detailed engineering or financials that we see. So I saw it as complicating the system, possibly a sign of stress, and, you know, maybe it's just a stress of a larger system, serving a larger population. I don't know. But that's what I took away from it. And now you're introducing this whole Vidler concept. And they want to move, they haven't sold the water that they had hoped to. That's okay, you know, that happens, market conditions, lots of things happen. 2, they've got very spendy water because of legacy agreements that were created with Washoe County Utilities that then were absorbed into Tumwa when we took over Washoe County Utilities. So it's really pretty removed from the current policies thinking of this body right now. And, you know, I think with that, we should, you know, if they want to sell more water, if they got a price problem, everything should be on the table. Reworks of those agreements, you know, price, even including, you know, thinking about, does Tumwa buy the system from them? Do we go through a massive appraisal, accounting, and see really what the value is? And if it's a resource that's great for the region, we put a price on it. I know that's huge and enormous, but that's as valid a point to raise as, you know, anything else, just letting them sell water, wheel it maybe through us to Tri-Center. I really want to have that concept have its own discussion and narrative. So, you know, those are some of my questions, concerns, and I think they're timely. I think it's an issue that this board needs to tackle, and I think we should tackle it soon. But I want to go back to 2 points. I do support, and maybe at a separate point, we do need to talk about how we're going to deal with anything that touches TROA, anything we do implementing TROA, the confidence of the board members here to know that at least communication was given over, you know, to the tribe or through their federal peer, you know, to them. And maybe that's the preference way of communication. But, so that's another side issue. But I just want to know these 2 agreements, the one that I saw at Reno is, I think, item 13. Is that item 13 or 12? No, 13. No, the first one is the Reno one, and 12, and I understand that. And I understand that the Reno sewer payers are paying the cost differential to what you did that. I'm not crazy about it, but, you know, it was a workout for sewer. Now, 13 just is a straight deal implementing that first agreement with Fish Springs. Is that correct? Between Tumwa and us?
it's a separate agreement. City of Reno's not involved in that, but that it takes both. If
We just did.
this board does not approve the water rights purchase agreement, the agreement with the city of Reno goes away.
And I get that, I'm really trying to understand the narrow scope of the second agreement. Does it touch on all these other issues of Vidler's desire to wheel water back wherever and sell more water?
Now, like we talked about in that January workshop a year ago, we talked about a pilot study, a small, okay, let's take a step and look at doing this. And this was one of the concepts that we came up with it basically indirectly allows Fish Springs, that resource, to be available for our whole service area, which is a good thing. And I wanted to make a comment on your stress perspective. I disagree with that. I think we're trying to be as, okay, Truckee River rights, in some respects, you are correct. There's a limit to the amount of Truckee River water on the system, right? So we want to be as efficient as we can be with that water in serving future development. And so this is just one example. You may do some complicated deals, but our goal in this is to have the most efficient use of the available water that we have for this community, both from not only just serving new development, but from a resiliency standpoint, redundancy, reliability, and so forth. So things are getting more complicated. I mean, Tumwa's system is a very complex system. I mean, I'll say I take it for granted because you don't see the day-to-day stuff that our operations guys go through and make it seem so seamless. I mean, they're the best firemen out there, believe me. The things that we don't see, I mean, you wouldn't sleep at night if you saw the things that they dealt with on a daily basis, like flooding pump stations that took out the whole system that serves the Northwest, little minor things like that. But I'll say the Water Resources Group, we're trying to be as efficient as we can so that we could stretch the resources that we have available to us, increase resiliency, increase just the whole drought, climate change issue. We need to be efficient because, like I said, there is that limit on the Truckee River water. There's 35,000 acre feet or so left. That'll last a long time, but if we just go dedicating it, okay, an option would be, Reno, just go buy more Truckee River water to satisfy your return flow obligation. Okay, they could do that. That's a solution. There's a cost to that. But what cost is there when those water rights are soaked up? And now really what's like the next water supply for Tumwa? It would actually damage Tumwa if they were inefficient in doing that. So that's really why we've gotten involved with the return flow in the first place, so that we, working with Reno Sparks and Washoe County, the tribe and everybody, I want to go back to the question and the comment that Ms. Hill made about we did not consult with the tribe on this. I don't think that's necessarily correct, because we are having ongoing discussions with the tribe representatives on the return flow management agreement concept in general. There was just a meeting with them a week or so ago, moving forward. They still have questions. They still have concerns. We're committed to satisfying their concerns, but Tumwa does not make it a practice to consult with parties that are not a direct party to an agreement. We rely on satisfying TROA, the state engineer, and the federal water master. And all three of those parties are involved in these agreements and nodding their heads. There's still some permitting hoops that we need to dot the i's and cross the t's. This agreement is subject to state engineer approval, but that's how Tumwa conducts business because everybody's involved. It's not just the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. I mean, should we consult with California too, or the feds when we have an agreement with the city of Reno? We actually didn't consult with Sparks or Washoe County on this, but I mean, it's just, you can't just open the door for, these are relatively, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but it really is a pretty simple agreement. We're going to buy 400 acre feet of water for $10 million. we're gonna pump groundwater instead of Truckee River water, and we're gonna leave that Truckee River water in the river to satisfy return flow obligations. Tuma's gonna pay this, Reno's gonna pay that. That's what the agreement is.
So, look-
Okay? Mr. Dare,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead, and then Mr. Anderson.
So, few different things, and I'm going to echo what you just said. I'll start there, and then I'll come back to the other. I without question believe we strongly need to respect the tribe. I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, we are working diligently trying to make sure they're there. I know you are. I even met with the council, one of their council members. We're even having coffee regularly talking about some things. With that said, I want to be very careful that we don't seek permission to do the business we need from all these entities. And just like you did not come to Sparks, we also don't go to you guys, and that's just not how we do what we do. And nor do they come to us for our permission. Now, it doesn't mean they wouldn't communicate, and we should be communicating. And if that is a contingency for our decisions in the future, then we need to change our board. We're going to put ourselves in a really bad spot. That is not our goal, but it is to always work alongside and show respect. And so I'll say that I agree with you. I also am a little confused. Reno's already approved this, and so some of this conversation, maybe they need to go back to their board if they actually don't believe this is happening. I know if I came and we already had this conversation, already approved this as Sparks, then we are here to represent our city. We're here to say this is what we're moving forward, and we did this. So some confusion on me right now on that. I just point that out. I don't get it.
We did not discuss this.
I'm talking,
I'm just saying, letting you know, we didn't discuss.
There's an
this.
approval.
Ms. Stewart, please.
I've heard there's an approval. Is there approval?
Of a different.
Is there,
Stewart.
on the first set of
The
this?
city of Reno approved the lease agreement
Okay.
between the 3,000 acre feet for $300,000 and change. a
And
year
so
for
you
10
added
years.
the second piece on there that's,
Yeah,
that because
other
the deal.
piece is Tumwa's agreement with Vidler that the city is not a party to.
I understand that
And
part.
Reno staff specifically requested not to be party to that agreement.
Okay, and so for me, I would say still, supporting our sister city here on what they have seen is gonna be helpful to them. I know they need this. To me, looking at what we need, to me, I'm gonna agree, this is actually not as hard of a decision as we might be trying to make it. We need water, we need this redundancy. Our responsibility is to have this emergency contingency. This is what, for 6 years I've been on this board, we keep talking about. So this opportunity is here. And so, with that said, I very much support this. I don't understand why we would not. So I just want to say that. And I also, and part of this is not to disrespect anybody on this board, it's actually to support people on this board in our region and our cities, and agreements are being made. So I'll be done, but I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
So since this board, if I remember correctly, was a year ago, encouraged staff to continue to be innovative in how we move forward and how we look at the future for water. And I believe this is a perfect example of what we asked you to do. So I want to thank you and your staff for the work, as well as what could be a very complicated decision for us. You have whittled down all the details so we can compare apples to apples. And you guys have done a great job. This is what we as a board not too long ago asked you guys to do. And what we're doing here is assuring that we have a sustainable water supply for the future. And I just want to say thanks, and I do support this.
Okay, hold on just a second, Ms. Breckus. I'd like to ask a question, if I may. So, Mr. Enlow, beyond the obvious point of leaving water in the river, which is a benefit to everyone concerned, that just makes sense to me, including the tribe. Is there an additional offset that we get to? It seems like I remember something about the tribe gets an offset payment when we hit a certain amount of money with, or usage rather, with Vidler Water.
Yeah,
Can you
you're
explain
referring
that?
to, in the banking agreement.
Yes.
And there was actually a settlement agreement between Vidler Water Company and the tribe.
Yes, thank you, the settlement, that's right. I'm sorry.
Ratified by Congress,
Okay,
that once Vidler Water Company has committed 8,000 acre feet of water. So there's an additional 5,000 acre feet of water that's available up there. And I think we talked about this, I want to say a couple of months ago. We're working with Vidler and BLM and others right now to seek approval, the permitting approval for that other 5,000 acre feet. But once there, to your point, there is a payment that the tribe receives a portion of the proceeds of the will serve commitments that, I mean, when somebody comes in and pays $40,000 an acre foot, Tumwa literally writing a check and sending it to Vidler. It's just a pass through. So, but Vidler, through this settlement agreement, is responsible for paying, I forget what the percentage is, 13%, 17%, something like that, of the proceeds to the tribe. And that's on top of some payment and some land that was,
In the settlement itself.
yeah, in the
Yes.
settlement
Yes.
itself
Okay.
from years ago.
Right, no, understood. Okay, that's, I just wanted to make sure, because it's something had struck my
Right.
memory that was part of the agreement. Ms. Breckus, and then Ms. Hill has another question as well.
Yeah. So, when I prefaced my comments about these very narrow agreements in front of us, that's why I expressed concern that it got rolled in and then the dialogue goes off into the legacy of the Vidler agreements and so on. And this was not in front of the city of Reno. There's slides in here about Marlet Lake. When this item 12 came to the city of Reno, were no part of the context. And, Tumwa does a great job getting us the information to make the decisions. And I'm just expressing concern that this really probably should have been 3 items. And I'll stand with that, But I want to go back to the concept of, the Vidler water and the pilot project, okay? Because in the work that I did to get to a point of approval on item 12, I don't really recall that pilot project. I recall the driving need for this was an interpretation of the water master.
Right.
And sometimes if actions merge 2 issues, that's great. I support a pilot project. I've had questions about the Vidler water, the legacy. I've known about the payment to the tribe also. But I want to say, and I love pilot projects. I think that's very nice. And when you have an engineering topic, you can do that because it's physical. But I think that before we go any further, we need to, even if we need outside analysis on this, look at the legacy, do a SWOT analysis or a gap analysis, it said, on the Vidler question. And I'd love for this board under current, membership or generation of elected officials to be able to tackle it. Because we are essentially one board removed from the legacy of the Vidler Washoe County Utilities, Mary. And then we're 2 actually, and one generation from, we are the merging generation of Washoe County Utilities and Tumwa. And so I think it would be very apt for this body to be the one to answer the Vidler question as a policy and direction. And, to the issue of complexity, is, time is a complexity lag. And a lag on complexity. And I think letting issues hang out is also problematic, particularly on this water stuff. So I would encourage my board members, I think I can be in a position to support this. Understanding number 13 is very narrow, doesn't have any precedent-setting issues with the agreements that we have in place, and that we will go back and talk about the entire Vidler issue. And it is stress. When you bring on an importation project and start using it, whether it's the day it's built or approved, or the day you turn on the spigot, which is where we are, it does add complexity to your system. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
If I could just make one clarification.
Please.
The PowerPoint presentation, that was included in there. I could not recall if Member Hill was part of the Tumwa board, actually, at the time when we had that workshop in January, and I wanted to provide some context. So that's from that workshop a year ago, just to try to understand, here are all these different things that Tumwa is working on from, as you directed us, trying to be efficient and creative and innovative with water resource agreements. So it was just included in there in context. If it confused the situation, I apologize.
Okay, Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the background that was given on this item. I feel like I do understand it. The issue for me is not the idea of asking permission from our neighbors. It's actually the idea of not surprising our neighbors. I was reached out directly by the tribe about this issue because they were surprised about it. They just happened to be looking at the agenda. That's not how I feel like we should conduct our business with our neighbors. I think, and I've made this clear on other items, I feel like we should say, hey, this is what we're up to, just to let you know, do you have concerns? And then that would be something that we would know as a board about the concerns. I feel like dialogue is very important, and I will say the city of Sparks is notified about this item because you're on the TUMA board. We do not have a representative from the tribe, either tribes on this board. And I feel like they're still our neighbors and still people we need to work with. So that is why I have concerns about this item, and I'd like to see better cooperation in the future.
Okay. We have not kicked it enough. Ms. Dewar?
Sorry, not trying to kick,
Okay.
but I am trying to vet.
Okay.
I just wanted to get a few points on the table. One, I was an ardent supporter of the Reno part of this agreement. An advocate, made the motion over at Reno. Number two, for clarification, we did not see this part of the presentation. And frankly, I'll be clear, I did not understand all of the moving parts, that there was a companion piece. So I'm just sharing that. Number three, I actually would like to see a future agenda item on the purchase. It's not just what Member Breckus brought up about the issues, but even think further. We've just negotiated with Boomtown to take over their water system. I mean, this is not, we have a history of this now, of this organization becoming public from Sierra Pacific, of that, the merger with Washoe County and other systems, and then we have Boomtown as well. So there's a number of precedents. So before we do further agreements, this is a 10-year agreement. It's a good conversation to have. So I just want to put a place marker for that. Next, you mentioned $15,360, and you mentioned a developer cost, and this is a second confusion point for me. Are they, Vidler, changing their $40,000 to a $27,000 or a $15,000 for developers? Is that where this comes in?
So that 15.3, so we're buying water for $25,000 an acre foot.
Okay.
So then Vidler's out of that 400 acre feet of water.
Right.
We're basically charging that $15,000.
Back to developers?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then lastly, I wanted to make the same point, and Ms. Hill did before me, which is that it's not about getting permission. It is just about communicating. And so just a thought, I do support this, and I don't like it to be misinterpreted that I don't, just because I have questions and want to understand clearly what we're signing up for. But I don't know, but I also believe in our board not having, moving forward together and not having contention. And to Ms. Hill's point, I just wonder if it's possible to craft a motion to approve this, but also have it not take effect for 30 days to allow that communication to take place. And I'm not talking about permission. They may like it, they may not like it. I personally know, I feel like I think that adding any extra water into the river is a good thing for everyone. It's just intuitive, it's a base understanding, but that doesn't mean everyone gets that. So that's just, Mr. Chair, I would be willing to make a motion, and I would seek counsel from our council advisor on how to craft that, just to allow the timing, of the effective date perhaps, that kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
hold on a second, Mr. Dewar. So yeah, Mr. Pani, I'd like you to chime in on this, and I mean, if we put this this 30-day delay mechanism into this, and I mean, are we even styled to do that?
So from a legal perspective, the board would have the ability to, it's a policy question. Whether it's a business matter, you believe it in the best interest of Tumwa to impose some kind of delay. The challenge would be you have an approval from the city of Reno. What would your approval, what would be the effect of the delay? What if you got input? Does that reverse the decision that you've
Right.
already made?
Yeah,
How do you
No.
condition it?
That's the
Yeah, I'm
point.
not-
That's my
Are you
question.
seeking a third party's permission to do
Again,
this?
it's not
Or is it
permission.
just, it's going to become effective automatically in 3 days? I would want the language clear regardless of what those discussions, if they were to happen.
Right, yeah,
that
and
would go into effect.
that was exactly my question, Mr. Pani. Is there a revision?
Yeah.
If I could just
But
raise-
I do think it's a bigger policy question of whether you want to seek anybody's, whether it's Fernley's,
So,
Story County's, anybody's approval.
do you want to chime in first? Do you want to, Mr. Enlow?
Can I just real quick?
You bet.
So, my, I agree exactly, but I would say there's nothing wrong with asking for a commitment of conversation, but I think you're doing that. And if anything, you've heard it clear from us that we're asking to make sure we collaborate on all ends, but we don't want the tribe surprised. That's without question, and Commissioner Hill brings that up, that's not the goal. At the same time, I still want to come back to say, we have to make sure we can move forward and do the business that we need to do for Tumwa. And I tell you, the tribe does that as well. We don't know everything they're doing, nor do they try to tell us everything they're doing. Now, with that said, so I appreciate what you just said, because I think you're just asking to make sure we show respect, but especially because there's.
To our other member as well.
Yeah, to our other member, I was with that
That's
question.
on the phone.
Without question, I think we all agree with the heart that she has, that's not it at all, but there still is something we're protecting here that I am concerned, making sure we protect policy-wise, is that we are not running around, and this is with anybody, we have to make decisions, we do, and it may surprise people at times, and we don't try to do that. But I do think, a commitment from you would to say, hey, we will go out and hear it, because I would love to hear if the tribe had concerns, we still can continue to talk about what that looks like.
And
So-
that's exactly what I was going to offer, is that staff will commit to working with the tribe. This is just one piece of the larger return flow management agreement that we're having ongoing discussions with the tribe about. So at our next discussion with tribal representatives, we can explain this piece of that management agreement.
Well, with that
them as well.
understanding, I'd be willing to modify my recommendation for a motion. And I'd like to propose to the board that we move forward with approval of this, and that you would, as staff, commit to, and again, as Ms. Hill and I both said, a conversation about the potential impact of this, which I think is very positive for them, but, and report back to us at our next meeting on that dialogue and that conversation. I would be willing to, move to approve this as it stands.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
okay, so I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
sorry,
Mr. Pani.
ties too tight. Just clarification, this is on item 12,
Right,
because I think we need to take them in order.
Right, yes, this is item 12.
Right.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. Hold on, Ms. Breckus. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? I should have asked for it earlier. Item number 12. Okay, so I will close public comment, and then under discussions, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Breckus.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, and maybe it's more relevant to 13, is, with Ms. Stewart's comments about what Vidler's done is they've negotiated a price. And so I really want to understand the implications of that. How much latitude do they have to negotiate prices? That's the conversation, and the piece of this that touches that entire issue that, I don't want to, we're taking in isolation, but it makes me uncomfortable. I'm willing to do it on this only, as she said. Number two is, you said something early in the process with Ms. Hill's concerns that we're having conversations still with the tribe on the return flow agreement. I am pretty sure, but the record would have to be checked, that I did not support the return flow agreement in part because of their concerns. So the fact that they're still hanging out there really bothers me also, and they're just listed as concerns to us. I want to know what's going on with that. This one I'm okay with, but to their point of concern on this one, to know that the one that, is already in effect is still not buttoned up, that's a problem. So I just want to note that, but I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
okay.
I
all
want to
right.
get clarity on my motion. Thank you, Mr. Punny. I really was speaking about 13. That was the
Okay,
issue.
so no, let's stick on item number 12
So I'll do a
first.
motion on both, but it's a caveat that's the same.
Let's, Mr.
I mean,
Pawnee,
one by one.
hold on.
Yeah, procedurally, I'd like to have the motion
Yeah,
on
one by
item
one.
12 first, because
Yes.
that it affects 13, so if you want
will.
to clarify your motion as to
Yes,
item 12.
that's what I want to make sure I do.
Okay. Motion on item number 12
12
first.
was to approve the interlocal agreement for water resource lease between Tumwa and City of Reno, with the same caveat that the staff will continue to converse with the tribe and report back to us on the impacts of their conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now, under discussion, Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I really appreciate the board trying to get to a unanimous decision today. I still cannot get there just because I don't know the full impacts, and I understand. I understand that this is probably great for the tribe in concept. It's not that I don't understand what this agreement is today. I just feel like, as a board member, my job is to make sure that I get all of these impacts and make a decision, and I just don't have all the decision points today. So, but I'm really excited that we had this discussion, and I'm really excited for how we're going to move forward with working with our neighbors. But again, I'm not going to be able to support it, but thank you so much for working towards that.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. This is for item number 12. Okay, we've called for public comment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries, what do we have? 5-1. Okay, let's move on to item number 13.
Okay, same motion. On item 13, I want to approve the water resource purchase agreement between Tumwa and Fish Springs Ranch, with the same caveat that the staff will continue to consult with in this case, Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and report at our next meeting about how those conversations are going and any issues that have been daylighted.
My only comment is we may not have a discussion between today and the next board
Well,
meeting.
I'm
So
asking you to try to.
It usually takes a long time to get everybody together.
I understand.
Thank you.
Can we, because I know how difficult it can be to put everyone in the same. How about if we say something along the line, Ms. Dewar, of we'd like it to be before the next meeting, but the caveat is as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Is that
that
suitable?
is, and I just report at the next meeting that it was not possible. I just want to update.
Okay.
Okay?
I can second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Dewar, second by Mr. Dare. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, Madam Clerk, is there any public comment? Okay, all right, I will close public comment. We've got a motion, we've got a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries again, 5-1. Okay. Thank you so much. That was complex. All right, Mr. Manager, that takes us now to item number 14, the General Manager's Report.
I have nothing further for the group. Just hope for more rain and more snow,
Okay,
and answer any questions. Thank you.
okay, anything for the manager? All right, we will close item number 14. That takes us to item 15, Madam Clerk, public comment. Do we have anyone signed in for final public comment?
Yes, you do, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Me,
Oh,
would you identify yourself, sir?
yeah. Michael Pawnee for the record. As some of you know, I've made the very difficult decision to transition to an of-council position with the firm, starting March 1st, so that I can work full-time for the De Loretto companies. I've loved working for the firm and for Tumwa, but this new position is going to give me a chance to slow down a bit, spend more time with my family, and seek out some new challenges. While I'm somewhat the face of the firm as I sit in this chair, as you know, there's a whole team of attorneys at McDonald Carano that work for Tumwa, and they will continue to work for Tumwa after I step down. It predates some of you, but it doesn't seem that long ago to me that Sylvia Harrison sat where I sit and told the board she was going to be taking some time back and announced that I would be stepping into her place in the following month. I've met with staff, and I'm pleased to say that Lucas Folletta at our firm will be taking my place next month after I leave. Lucas is a partner in our firm. He has a utility and regulatory practice, and he's done work for Tumwa for years. He had hoped to be here today, but he had a hearing in Las Vegas that he couldn't get rescheduled, so he apologizes that he wasn't able to be here, but he looks forward to working for you for some time in the future, and I know you'll be in good hands with Lucas. Most importantly, I wanted to thank you, and thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege working for Tumwa and its staff for the past 21 years. I have been spoiled, and my job has been made easy by working with some of the most dedicated, hardworking, intelligent, professional staff members that are out there, and with an exceptional board and chairman who have provided a steady hand of leadership over these years. I will miss you dearly, but I thank you for the opportunity to work with you all of these years.
Thank you, Mr. Ponting. Madam Clerk, is there any other public comment? Mr. Forey, do you want me to open back up general managers?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah. I forgot to give some recognition to our water quality staff. They had a really nice bit of recognition recently. We're one of only 40 labs in the country that is certified to test for the waterborne parasites Giardia and Cryptosporidium. The Wisconsin State Lab is the lab that sends out test kits to those 40 labs because you have to be recertified. I think it's every year, Andy, if not every 2 years. But so they send out, the Wisconsin State Lab sends out these test kits that have these parasites in them. They have asked Tumwa to be their quality control lab to make sure that these test kits that they send out are good and contain the parasites that they need to, the live parasites and so on. So that is a huge deal for Tumwa. That is just a really big honor for our water quality staff. So I would like to thank and commend our supervisor, Kelly Burgess, and her entire water quality staff for this really fine honor. So
That
thank
is
you.
truly amazing. That was worthy of opening item 14 again. Wow. Once again, Tumwa is a leader, not just in the region, but in the nation. That's awesome. Okay, very good. Is there any more public comment, Madam Clerk? Is there anyone wishing to speak before I close public comment? All right, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board. Item number 16. Mr. Dare, I have you sign in first.
Yeah, thank you. I first want to say congrats to our staff as well. I think it's awesome to get those kind of recognitions, and you just keep making us look good. And please keep doing that. We appreciate it. The other thing is, Mr. Ponting, it's been an honor, and I think from all of us, it's crucial that we have good advice. And I've actually read, not in this board, but other boards that I've seen at times, or even around our country, of when we don't get good advice, how it can really mislead us a lot. So you've been a steady hand actually for us many times, and pray the best for your family. So I really appreciate it. And yes, I know I've been on this for 6 years now, and learned a lot from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dare. Ms. Breckus, go ahead. The floor
Yeah.
is yours.
I would like an update on the return management flow agreement specifically. I mean, I want to know if it's inked and in full effect and from there on or operating. So for a future item, as staff can fit it in. I did not know Mr. Pogny was moving on. I wish him all the best. I'm sure I'll be seeing him because he said one of our major land developers in southeast Reno. So we'll be seeing you and look forward to that. I do think it's time for a pause for the board to have a conversation about attorney representation, just like we did over at Western Water a couple of years ago and bid it out and went through a competitive point. As I understand, it's never been bid out past its inception. I would like, as we mentioned, the bidler, that's a big discussion, but hopefully it's one that we can have before our workshop, which I think is usually in the fall. And I'm sure there'll be a big background packet on that, and then, talking about the forks in the road that we could go with them. And then I'm not big on a lot of symbolism. I like more action and, dry stuff. But I do think there would be value for this board to consider adopting a land acknowledgement statement. I don't know if anyone knows what those are. The Reno Arts Commission adopted one. They're basically a formality up at the top of the agenda, acknowledging the land that we inhabit and its history. And I think that would be something that would be very useful for our operations and our memorialization of where we are and what has been bestowed upon us by those who came before us. And so I would ask maybe that we could have an item with the manager just explaining the concept. They're very prominent, but I don't know that any Nevada body other than this city board has adopted one. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. Anything? Okay. So, Mr. Forey, I guess what we'll do is we'll have a conversation. I mean, it's sort of like getting on an airplane. It doesn't matter who's flying it. The pilot is the pilot, and sometimes American Airlines has to substitute a pilot, so it happens all the time. So what I'd like to understand is do we need to crack open the agreement? How does that look? Just bring us back an item that talks about, that contemplates that. That's what I'd like to understand. I think that's appropriate. And maybe is there a way to do it internally? I mean, do we have enough resource to have counsel internally? And I don't know the answer to that, but let's talk about that. I know we've got some really talented people on staff, and I'm not talking about needing counsel periodically. That's a different subject. I'm talking about meeting management.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, just meeting management. Right.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. You and I are saying the same thing.
Okay, yeah, I'm just talking about meeting management.
Interesting.
It's a
Yeah,
very, very simple kind of a thing. Yeah, let's. No, I understand. Ms. Stewart.
Yeah. I too wanted to share my thanks to Mike. Having been in the water business for a long time myself, I know that his specialty is very rare and unique, and it's been well honed over the years, through many, many thoughtful analyses and decisions. And I think anytime a person, you're essentially taking on a broader practice, with the DiLoretto companies, it still may involve water issues, which I imagine it might, but leaving sort of other people being able to hire you for these kind of issues, I think is a loss, to our community, to the water resources community at large. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. You've really made a mark on our community with all the work you've done, including now at Western Regional Water Commission, another example, and the other boards that you've represented. For example, the Steamboat Ditch, and I assume you won't be staying there either, and the Last Chance and so on. So, that's a big, you're in a big world, and leaving all of those folks, and like you said, there's other people that can step up, and they need to get training too, right? Mentoring from you, and you're not going anywhere, so you'll be here. So I just wanted to put how important that is, your experience and knowledge, and making sure that knowledge transfer takes place, to support all of these organizations. So thank you. And the DiLoretto companies, to my knowledge, are mostly in Ward 2, and I'll be looking forward to working with you there.
Okay, my final,
Mr. Chairman, could I get clarification of Ms. Breckis's request about the land
Yeah.
acknowledgement? I
Okay.
did
I'll-
not get that.
I'll work with you. It would be a presentation to the body on the concept and use of land acknowledgement
And then-
statements by
then-
public bodies.
And then what you can do, Mr. Foria, is, we have a 2-hour rule. If this is going to require an immense amount of staff time, let's talk about what that, and let the board decide.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll get more information. From
Good,
Ms.
yeah,
Breckis.
let's just try to make a determination. Okay, final comment, Mr. Pani. Sir. Michael.
Final tap out, what do they do? This is your
No.
final.
No, we're not doing any of that. I don't even want to tell people how long we've known each other. It's been a long time. You've been an amazing attorney, a very dear friend, your family. I know most of them, knew most of them in some cases. You will be missed. Very big shoes to fill, regardless of how it all sort of shakes out. Your ability to recall astounds me. It just astounds me. I'm in awe of it. And the way you have comported yourself is just exemplary. So I wish you all the best. I'm not happy with Mr. DiLoretto. Yeah, we've already had the conversation. Perry and I talked. But again, I wish you the best, and I do not blame you. You must do what is best for your family and for your own personal well-being. So congratulations on that move. Okay? All right. If there is nothing else, we are adjourned.